The fight against terror over the years is what the country has been battling with tremendous successes recorded by the recent times rather by the Nigerian military. The act of terrorism still continue with the use of suicide bombers. To do an analysis on this development is Lionel Rawlins, a UN security consultant. You're welcome on the program.
Good morning.
Morning. Lafiya. Okay.
Lafiya.
Good. I say Berkata Safiya. Now, all right, now let's set a premise for this discussion. With the recent success recorded by the Nigerian military, a lot of people would have thought that, okay, by now there shouldn't have been any reports of suicide bombers, prowling within the city. But we see the more the battle is won, the more we see suicide bombers prowling again. So what is wrong, man?
Well, last week you brought up that same question. It's to be expected. It's a last resort type of strategy, and they cannot take over a whole village, city or town like they once did, and they don't have nuclear weapons to use. So the best strategy to use is suicide bombers, and by all reason, it's very effective when done properly.
Because there are a lot of casualties recorded there now.
Well, it's just easy to deploy. You can send someone into a church, a mosque, a wedding, a funeral, a school, a place to eat, and have them detonate. And someone who is willing to do that to themselves and kill people is quite easy to find.
And now, aside the suicide bombing, let's look at a gender involved in this act. Most of the time, or recently, we see female being used as suicide bombers. But why is it that female are more wicked than the men, or they can be more effective in the discharge of that? Or?
Well, they're more effective because women are not seen as suicide bombers. They will more suspect a man than a female, and the female can easily walk into any place and without people scrutinizing her. And that is why they always use women. But more suicide bombings have been carried out by men. But the more casualties, the more fatalities are the ones that were done by female suicide bombers. So even though there are few women, they kill the most and they kill more because of their easy access to people.
Okay, now the military authorities have given a security alert saying that some of these suicide bombings might happen in several parts of the country, moving away from the epicenter of, the Boko Haram insurgency. Do you think that we'll begin to see more, because we saw an issue coming up in Jos, do you think we'll begin to see it progress more inward into the country?
Of course. And people need to start preparing for that. It's a last resort effort, as I said, but they're not just going to target Adamawa or Borno or anywhere in the northeast. It's easy to deploy all over, and in states that are big, that have more people and more prominence, like Abuja and Lagos. It's so much easier to send them there, and it'll make life easier for us up here, but it's easier to send them down there because it's easier to do. There are more venues, more people, less awareness, because everybody thinks that only in the northeast that we have the problem. And so people are very easygoing, laid back, and very lackadaisical down in the south. And this is a good time for suicide bombers to really take advantage of it.
Okay, looking at states like Adamawa, Borno, Yobe, you don't have as much development as you have in, say, Abuja or Lagos. And as such, some of the road connectivity is just, probably a one-way or just maybe one road connecting major towns. And yet, these suicide bombers are not being able to be checked, or they still have, they still turn up and they bomb. What about places like Abuja, where you have so many road networks, so many methods to come in, so many ways with which they can be deployed into such areas? How do you check for people like that?
Well, it's difficult to check, but remember, they don't walk around with a suicide vest or the bomb on them all the time. It can be made right in your house, and then I can come, you dress me, and I can go straight to the party hall or the beer parlor straight there directly. So it's difficult to check because they don't walk around with it. And it's strange, but it's, you know, it's only about 15,000 naira it costs to make a suicide vest. Just, that's how cheap it is, using a little batteries here and a little bit of wire and so forth. You can make a whole suicide vest for 15,000 naira or even less. And you can, so anyone can build it in the kitchen, in the house, in the living room, and just deploy, send somebody wearing it to a church or a mosque or a gathering place and kill a lot of people. And it is so much more effective than a drone in the sky dropping a bomb on a building. It costs about $1 million US dollars to set off a drone and kill people below. A suicide bomber can do it, the same thing, for 15,000 naira or less.
Now, Abdullahi Bawa was a security analyst based in Abuja, who has been following the Boko Haram conflict, said it is actually an act of desperation by the militant. And he said Nigeria will see more of these. So what's the connection now with the militant being desperate? You know, do we see that desperation manifesting in continuous suicide bombing?
Yes, he's right. He used the word desperation. I will say it's a last resort strategy. It's all terrorist groups do that. Whenever the backs are against the wall and things get a little heated and tough, they deploy suicide bombers. And it's to let you know that we are still here, that we haven't given up the fight, we are still in the fight, and we're going to kill more, and we will kill more, is again also to put fear, instill fear into the people. Because once suicide bombers start to take place, people are fearful of going to the market, going to the mosque, going to church, going to a beer parlor. They don't want to go out because they don't know who is the suicide bomber amongst us in this room. And so it instills fear, but it will continue because it's the easiest thing to do. And finding people is not difficult.
Okay, many people just have this assumption that many of the suicide bombers are either brainwashed or probably drugged. That's why they are willing to set their lives and just go. But is it possible that some of these suicide bombers are active participants in this insurgency and want to do it not because they are being drugged or brainwashed?
Very good question. Yes, the people become suicide bombers for a range of reasons. One of them, for example, is nationalism. Your nation goes to war, and you are willing to die for your country. The Japanese did it in World War II when they would fly the planes loaded with bombs into the ships. They call them kamikaze pilots. You can do it for religious reasons. Everybody wants martyrdom. It's a good thing to be considered a martyr. And it's not just one faith, it's all faiths. They're considered, they want to be martyrs. People can do it for political reasons. They don't like the government, or they want to keep the government in power, so they get rid of the opponents. Or we can go to things like the word you just said, brainwashing. You can have a savvy and smart leader who is charming and charismatic, and he can make people message your head and send you out to do his biddings. But we also have people who are forced into it. And, you know, if you don't do it, I'll kill you, I'll kill your parents. So like, for example, an 8-year-old girl who has a bomb strapped around her, she has no reason, she doesn't even know what she's doing. She's forced into that. But you also have people who are paid for it, who are willing to give up their lives for the money. And finally, it's for revenge. A lot of it takes place for revenge. And most of the people who do it for revenge are women, because most of them have either lost a husband, lost a dad, lost a brother, lost a boyfriend, or the boyfriends or the dad were beaten up and tortured in some military prison or some police prison. And so they decided to take it upon themselves to become suicide bombers, because to them, I'm avenging my father's death or my husband's death. And all of the women that have been studied in the world who have been used as suicide bombers have had losses of male counterparts in their lives.
Now, could that be a reason or, you know, an explanation for why we have a huge surge in the number of women that are participating in these suicide bombings?
It's a good study, it's a case study to be carried out by the Nigerian authorities, because, you know, whenever the Boko Haram group has been dealt a solid blow and they lose 200 or 300 people, some of them could be these women's husbands or parents or the brothers. And so for them to come back out and lash back out in the name of their father or the name of the husband, it's an honorary and glorious thing for them to do. And so people, they need to start going into the psychology of these people and why they do it.
Now, before now, we hear Abubakar Shekau, the leader of the Boko Haram sect, promising to disrupt the forthcoming election. And a few weeks ago, we hear a report that a chopper was distributing certain kind of flyers. You know, the content of that flyers actually read a kind of withdrawal or being a little bit of paranoid of what has been happening. Now, is it a kind of a play in our psyche or the psyche of Nigerians now, you know, in between these, just to disrupt people from going to the polling stations?
Yeah, it's an old trick. You put fear into people. It's not just in Nigeria, it happened all over the world. You instill fear into the people and said, if you go to vote, we'll kill you. So for some people, for some parties, the less amount of people go to vote is better for them. It might be favoring them, or it might, if you have more people going to vote, it may benefit the other party. But if you instill fear into the people, people will not go to vote. And that is what they're trying to do. If you think that I'm going to stand in this line and somebody's going to blow us up and kill us all, you will not go.
Now, back to the flyer, Lionel. Did you hear certain flyers being distributed by an unsuspect or unknown helicopter?
Yes, I heard that.
Good. You went through the contents, right?
Right.
Good. Now, what does that speak?
Well, they don't want you to get involved and vote for anyone, because they believe that democracy is bad and democracy is wrong. Some people said it's not Boko Haram that did it. Well, Boko Haram doesn't have a helicopter unless they rented one. And so somebody is either doing it for themselves, doing it politically, or somebody is giving a helicopter to Boko Haram to do that.
Okay, let's take a quick breather right about now and bring to you this report. At least 35 people were killed on Thursday in 2 bombings in Nigeria. Boko Haram is believed to have carried out this particular event that we are talking about. And to do an analysis on the development, of course, we have Lionel Rawlins with us, but we also have independent reports that are coming in. Troops from Chad are moving into Nigeria at a very, very fast pace in hope to defeating the militant group. CNN's Arwan Damon was invited to join Chad's military as it chases down Boko Haram. Let us see that report.
The weather conditions have resulted in poor visibility, forcing these helicopters to fly quite low. We'll be passing over Cameroon as we head towards one of Chad's front lines with Boko Haram in Nigeria.
We're with one of the region's most feared military forces, and also apparently one of the most effective. Some say heavy-handed. After coming under attack by Boko Haram in neighboring Cameroon, this Chadian unit gave chase, following the militants right across the border into northern Nigeria. We were invited along with the Chadian top brass. The convoy to the front is massive, heavily armed, packed with jubilant troops.
This was one of Boko Haram's positions. That's what the soldiers were just yelling as we were driving by.
Chad's well-equipped and battle-hardened army joined the fight in January, helping Nigeria reclaim a chunk of northern territory. We passed through the abandoned town of Gumbar.
Welcome back. Now, we have been discussing the recent trend of suicide bombing by terror group Boko Haram with Lionel Rawlins, AUN security consultant. Now, before the break, of course, Ramat, you asked him why female are more predominant now, and it's on the prowl. But let's look at the flyers distributed recently by an unknown helicopter. And you say just a normal thing to instill fear in the heart of the people. So do we still remain as people who have harbored that fear not to go to the polls?
That's right. It's a good strategy and tactic by politicians to do that. And you will not go to the polls if you felt as if you were going to get killed, and your wife will not let you go if you felt that you were going to get killed, and you will not let your children go to the polls to vote if the belief is that the place is so unsafe that you will not, that you will get killed. And it's designed to mess with the mind of the people, instill fear to prevent them from taking part in a constitutionally democratic process. And the people should not be afraid to go to the polls and vote, because I'm almost positive the security forces will ensure your safety.
Okay, finally, before we wrap up, we are hearing security reports that dynamites that were stolen from quarries were what are used.
Particularly that of a shark.
Yes, that's what the suicide bombers are using. Now, when you look at the story of the lady that was killed in Bauchi, she was having bottles in her dress. And how do you interrelate that? Dynamites and, you know, bottles that were found on her. But what is the correlation to, and how do we need, what do we need to look out for in people, you know? That's just the question. What do we need to look out for?
And aside their formations, because places like motor parks, you know, churches, mosques, and
the markets,
that happens,
restaurants,
the markets, particularly the market, restaurants.
Yes.
What should be the preventive measures, precautionary measures now?
Well, first of all, you don't need dynamite to do that. That's overblowing it. That's like flying from here to Abuja in a spacecraft. You don't need dynamite, you don't even need TNT. They have things they call TATP, which is triacetone triparate or something like that. TATP is what all people use. It's easy to get, easy to deploy, easy to set up. What everybody needs to do is, if you are going to a car park and you don't see anybody getting searched and everybody just mingling around, you should leave.
Immediately.
People need to start searching people. And we are not living in the dark ages. The way the situation dictates is that we need to start screening and searching people. And if you're a man wearing a gare, or a lady wearing a big dress, or what, even if it's a pregnancy dress, somebody needs to search you and tap and pat you down to look for some kind of hidden bomb. And even your purses and your big bags, that your Michael Kors bags, they need to be searched. So you should not be allowed to walk into
I think we need to set another day to talk more on how to create a formidable security apparatus in crowded areas.
Yes, that was Lionel Rawlins, AUN security consultant. After the break, we'll look at the surprise visit by President Goodluck Jonathan last week, Thursday. Stay with us. We'll be right back.